Welcome, friends, and thank you very much for downloading the Frederick Henry Show podcast. I haven't been podcasting too much lately because the news is so oppressive, and you see a lot of it anyway. I'm flabbergasted at the point that we're at because we're so far down. What is it now? 2 months? What is it? Over 60 days? Whatever it is on this COVID-19 flu epidemic, whatever pandemic. And, ultimately, we have a few things I think we have to look at, and I know I do anyway. One of the things that I look at is that this is a worldwide response. Interesting enough, I think we would be quite more upset if it was just the United States of America responding to the COVID-19, or just parts of the United States of America. And we would be very upset if just... That's beautiful. Sorry for that little phone call here. This is done on a phone, so if a phone call comes in, it makes a mess out of it. I think we would be upset if just the United States of America was committing economic suicide, not the rest of the world. So maybe, I think, I'm not an economist, I'm not a finance person, I'm not a banker, but my belief is that since everybody has responded basically the same, and everybody has been committing a financial and economic suicide during these months of response, then I think that everybody will come up out of it because we'll all work together as a world organization. Recently, when I was in another place, I noticed that there was very little train traffic, freight train traffic, very little truck traffic. There was some truck traffic, not a whole lot, and it happened to be in a port. There was no ship traffic. And yet, we continued on through this. We got through it. And recently, the last week or so, I've noticed a remarkable increase in truck traffic on the highways. I've noticed a remarkable increase in freight train traffic. As I move about, I stop in front of all these freight trains, 150 car freight trains going by, which I think is always an indication of upticking economic activity. And then, because I am near a port, where there were no ships coming in. Recently, I've noticed there's 3 ships a day coming in and exiting the port where I'm at. So that is, I'm talking about gigantic container ships filled with containers and then taking empty containers away. Amazing. So this is all good news. I've noticed an increase in traffic. I have had to be on the road a couple of times during these days, and each time it was certainly a pleasure to be on superhighways, 4 lanes, 6 lanes, and just have 10 cars for many, many miles. Little freaky, but no problem in terms of traveling. Now, and in that sense, because I had to and I'm allowed to be on the roads like that, then it was okay. But it was always a question about why is everybody locked down on a highway. Recently, by the way, I saw a sign that says, stay healthy, stay apart physically, and stay apart in the traffic as well. And that's true. We shouldn't bunch up in the traffic, but that's always been true. It's not a matter of that we keep 6 foot or 6 car lengths because of the COVID. We should keep the car lengths for safety reasons. When you're traveling at 70, 75, and 80 miles an hour in some of these places, you shouldn't be on top of each other. Much too dangerous. Now, reflecting upon what we've seen done in the United States now, the states are opening up, which is a good thing, and they're opening up pretty slowly, which I guess is a good thing, and many people are using what they call the White House, Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci guidelines, national guidelines for opening up and all kind of metrics. And that's understandable. People in government and people in organizations like metrics. They like charts. They like measurable devices, something they can measure. But there's another element to the whole thing, and it's the human factor. I've talked about this in previous podcasts. What did we pay for this? Money, yeah, billions and trillions. Larry Kudlow was on the other day, said something like $9 trillion cost-wise. Okay, but money is money. People's lives are different things, and we've heard a lot of people say, well, we have to do this because people will die. Well, people will die walking down the street. People will die from a heart attack. People will die driving a car. People will die all kinds of ways. People will die from the measles, all kinds of things. Worldwide, all kinds of diseases. So, yes, people die, and we can't stop death. Death happens. Now, we can prevent unnecessary death, and that's what I think we did with the COVID-19, because we believed at one time, according to the now debunked models from the Imperial College in London, and also the University of Washington State University out there in Washington, saying that 2.4 million Americans would die because 200 million Americans would get a severe case of the COVID-19 virus. Well, those figures were brought down to 1 million, and then to 200,000, and now down to under 100,000 nationwide for death. And so these models are not experience-based, they're mathematical-based, they're based upon projections or foreseeable things. It's like going to a fortune teller. Well, if you believe this, if you believe that, then you believe this is what's going to happen. So it didn't happen that way. That's a good thing, praise God. And we don't want that to happen, and we're doing the best we can. But at the same time, we don't want to lose our American freedom, the freedom of movement, the freedom of what to wear, what to do, where to go. I recently saw a very telling photograph combination where on the one side was the Jews of Germany during the Second World War wearing a gigantic yellow star, and the Gestapo stopping them and arresting them if they did not wear that yellow star. And then people on the other side, a second photograph right next to it, Americans wearing a blue surgical mask and some not, and those not wearing a blue surgical mask were supposedly, according to the idea, being arrested. Now, we've been threatened with arrest, and some people maybe have been arrested for such a thing, but we don't want to return to that Nazi Gestapo idea of Germany in the Second World War, where people are told they must wear a mask, or they must wear a star, or they must wear I think Bill Gates was talking about some kind of a implanted device put into a person's body, and then it would tell you their medical history, and they could check it. The Gestapo police of America could, and the police are not the Gestapo, but they could become the Gestapo. They're not the Gestapo, but they could become the Gestapo if they uncritically and unthinkingly obey executive orders and not wait for the legislatures and the courts. The whole thing is absurd. But Bill Gates, he wants to use everything as an algorithm. Every person is a number. Everybody is person. I don't know if you remember the movie Tron. Tron was all about digitizing the human person and putting little things in their arms so they could be tracked by overhead drones and satellites and all that kind of thing. The Chinese Communist Party wants to do that too. They want to put little things in everybody's arm at birth so they can be tracked all across the nation, that you'll know everywhere, every time, everything. This is leading to a terrible, terrible loss of individual freedom and movement. Okay, having said all that, I think we're on the right road. I think we're moving forward. I think we're going to have to make a decision. And the big decision I suggest to you is we're going to have to regain trust in each other. Some people would say it's an intended consequence. It was meant to be that. Others would call it an unintended consequence of this whole coronavirus response has been a basic distrust of the other person, of the other human being, because it was put out to us that the other human being might be the carrier of the COVID virus death. In other words, at the height of the panic, people were being led by the mainstream media and the fake stream media and the multiple massive corporate medias to believe that the other person could bring death to you just by breathing. So we stayed at 6 foot apart, we wore masks, we did all kinds of things because the other person was the bringer of death to us. And we, for our sake, they were telling us at the same time, we should practice all these things out of concern for the other person. We should stay at home, we should not go out, we should wear a mask. Basically, we should not breathe, because if we did, we might bring death to another person, especially to our grandmothers and grandfathers. At the height of the pandemic, they were screaming about that kind of stuff to frighten us and telling us about the boogeyman, who in this case was ourselves and other people. We have to regain, my friends, trust. And I think that's going to be that we're going to have to be given back. The government, the administrators, the towns, the localities, the states, those are the ones who are enforcing these rules. They have to give back to us our rights. They have to give us back our adult rights and the parenting of our children's rights and our citizenship rights, that we can make decisions for ourselves, what to do, where to go, what to wear, what not to wear, what to eat, what to drink, and what to do. We're being made into slaves to a government that claims that because of a disease, they're trying to save our lives. Now, yeah, but doesn't apply to the flu, does it? Doesn't apply to measles or mumps or chickenpox or anything like that. It might in the future because that's the way these tyrannical governments want to go, but hopefully it won't. So what we need to do as a citizenry is I think we need to we have to convince ourselves, talk to ourselves, and have faith in our other fellow citizens. We can practice all kinds of personal distancing or personal habits or personal decisions about where to go, what to eat, and what to do, but we make those decisions for ourselves, and we're not afraid of other people, and we're not afraid of being arrested by some kind of a misguided police force, which it isn't being done, but could be done much more prominently than in the few instances where it has been done. Okay, my friends, I'm sorry that I haven't been with you all these days. I thank you for downloading this podcast. I wanted to say to you, I'm encouraged. I've had a few days when I was really discouraged. I didn't put this podcast on. There were a few days when I was really in the depths. I was really beside myself with a disappointment and fear. I was afraid. I was afraid that we were not going to be able to come out from under this tyranny because we all had become completely docile and obedient. And I think we're coming out of that docility and we're coming out of that unquestioning obedience to a more reasonable and adult and fair and right response to these things that are happening among us. I want to thank you again also for being patient with me and not dealing with all the crises around General Flynn and the judges and this Emmett Sullivan and these other people, all that. You hear enough of that from Laura Ingraham. And if you don't listen to Laura Ingraham, you most certainly should. From Don Bongino, wonderful podcast, Don Bongino podcast. My good friend, Black Conservative Patriot, his podcast, very, very good explanation of what's going on in detail about the Flynn case and the like more. Also, Sean Hannity, that's a common one. Rush Limbaugh, Tucker Carlson. Yes, these are all Fox personalities, most of them anyway, but that's where I go for my news because I've watched the other stuff and I know that it's nothing more than fake news. So, having let you know my opinions and my thoughts, I want to thank you again, wish you a great day, and let's move forward out of this fear response into a proactive, positive response and move into the future, not with a new normal, just move into the future. Let the future take care of itself, and let it take care of itself. I get nervous at last comment about people say, well, there's a new normal. When there's a new normal, it says to me there are people in power and authority who are structuring a model that they want me to fit into in the future. They're structuring an idea. This is the new future. This is the rules of the new future. This is the form of the new future. This is the structure of the new future. These are the parameters of the new future. These are the imprisonments of the new future. These are the rights you'll have, and these are the rights you won't have. No, I'll make those decisions. And I'll make those decisions as an adult. And I don't want to have a new normal where the administrative state and the governors and other people like that decide what boxes they're going to let me live in and what boxes I can't live in. And they're going to enforce that by stint of law enforcement. No. No new normal. Just move out of this past into the future and see what happens. I think we can handle it. And if you agree with that, then speak up, my good friends. Speak up to your friends, speak up to your relatives, speak up to your family. And I have had some really strong disagreements with members of my family about what should be and what should not be. But we've kept it civil. We've kept it friendly. I love my children. I love my relatives. I love my friends and neighbors. And when we have these conversations, and they are conversations, but they're strong conversations. They're conversations where we are willing to listen, we're willing to share, and we're willing to think new thoughts.